Hey everybody, it is Cathy with Backyard Columbus, and this is the third podcast episode in a row that I am recording, and I am closing out summer, and I am hell-bent on sitting outside and doing it. First of all, if I get up now, I've got to haul all of my podcast equipment inside, get my ring light turned on, and all the things, and I am quite comfy. If you happen to be seeing this on YouTube, which means I actually got it together and put it up on YouTube, I look like I'm doing a ghost story because it is dark behind me, my laptop light is in front of me, and it's just uplighting. Although, if you are watching me on YouTube, I have this really incredible t-shirt on. It's a ghost holding a bone, and it says, "I found this humorous." Come on, get it? That's pretty funny. Anyway, I liked it. Makes me happy. So, what I've done for today is, there is this Buddhist monk that I listen to, his podcast on YouTube, and, well, I guess it's his videos on YouTube. Anyway, he never has a plan. He just kind of comes out and talks about whatever's on his mind, whatever just happened, something that elicited an emotion in him. And I'm kind of the same way. I try very hard not to make this repetitive, but, it is all about gardening in your backyard and butterflies, birds, bees, flowers, chickens. I mean, there's only so many branches or paths you can take on that. But I just kind of like to think about, what's been happening, blah, blah, blah. So today, this episode is about the plight of the monarch butterfly. And the reason why is because today we had four monarchs come to our yard. And I have to say that since I started doing this is the first year that we have had, like 3 or 4, look, I'm not talking about 12 to 50 in our yard, but multiple monarchs at one time and on a quasi-regular basis throughout this butterfly season. So what is very encouraging is the last data that I heard, okay, so I'm not up on this every day. I have a full-time job, and it has nothing to do with butterflies, okay? So is that this year was a stellar year. I do believe it was something in the neighborhood of the numbers of, I'll say, the amount of monarchs doubled from last year, or perhaps, and this is like the same difference, I doubt any of you are going to get too down in the weeds about this, but perhaps there were double the amount of monarchs that overwintered last year. The eastern migratory monarch is what I'm talking about, that overwintered in Mexico, all right? That's great, whether it was twice as many in your yard, twice as many in Mexico, that's amazing, but still the 15th worst year in recorded history. Okay, so, you feel really great and then someone kicks you in the chin. So, but it is still encouraging because it's going in a better direction. I would like to think it is because the folks that are sharing information, and maybe, it would be great to think that I had a little teeny weeny part in that, is spreading the word on why these monarchs are declining. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, climate change and massive pollution, a heat wave, a forest fire, like the fires out in California or in the middle of the country, or hurricanes and what is something else? A tornado. Okay, those are things that are out of our control. If you're a massive climate change person, trying to combat it, I am not. I am a climate change believer, but I'm not saying you can't do anything about it. What I mean is there is so much that goes on that has to do with climate change that is above our pay grade, unless my entire listening base owns nasty, dirty, polluting businesses. You know what I mean? For the average homeowner, there are little things that we can do, and I would encourage you to do those, and I do those things too, but it gets to be too big of a problem. So those types of things do affect butterfly populations, but a big chunk, and what chunk is that? I don't know. I am not an entomologist. I am not a monarch scientist. I just made that up. But what I do know is butterflies need 2 things, okay, and monarchs included, because it's a butterfly. They need a place to eat, and they need a place to lay their eggs. That's literally, period, because they can mate anywhere, okay? They got the whole sky to mate. They can mate via hanging from a tree, all the things. But they definitely, as we all do, need a place. Well, I guess we all don't have to have a place to have a baby. Not everybody wants a baby. But animals do. That's their driving force, is to mate. All right. So in the suburban model, that doesn't allow for that. And if you haven't listened to this before, I would like to just think about this for just a minute. In the suburban model as it stands, what we are not even, what's the word? Actually encouraged to do subliminally. That's the word I was looking for. It's almost like a subliminal thing where it's like, okay, humans, you go into the suburbs and you get your pretty house, and then you have your concrete or whatever, sidewalk and driveway, and then you have your grass, your copious amounts of perfect green grass, and you have a tree or two and some bushes, and maybe if you're crazy, you can have some flowers. And usually those are daylilies, which do nothing. Although if you're a culinary person, Stella d'Oros, those are daylilies. They're little buttercup yellow flowers. I have never seen a pollinator on those, but you can put them on a salad. So those are kind of neat for that in an edible landscape plan, but lots of other things better than that. Anyway, this is where, if you're a person who feels like politically we're going to hell in a handbasket, human beings we're going to hell in a handbasket, the whole United States, your area, your town, the world, the universe is all going to hell in a handbasket, I would really, really encourage you to kind of take a step back, because all that stuff is cyclical, okay? Things suck and then they get better, and they suck and then they get better. There's a lot of things you can do something about, and then there's a big fat load you cannot. And part of the reason why I want to share this episode with you is helping butterflies. Number one, it's fun. Nobody was ever in a bad mood because they were helping a butterfly, and moths and pollinators and all that stuff. But I'm just going to talk about butterflies because it's happier, okay? So butterflies equals all pollinators for all intents and purposes in this episode. That is something that makes you happy, and you can definitely, I promise you, make a change. So I have a friend who is in this field, and she is super doomy gloomy about it. The whole thing sucks. It's never going to get any better. And listen, statistically, it does kind of suck. But there are more and more humans taking up more and more space. And all of the things that the butterflies need to eat and lay their eggs on is being consumed by more strip malls and apartment complexes and data warehouses and things like that. So in the pristine early world, butterflies would fly around, and they would go to fields, and they would find their nectar sources, okay? And bees finding their pollen sources. But again, I'm just talking about all pollinators. They would find what they needed to eat in the fields, and they would find milkweed of all kinds. They would find goldenrod and echinacea and listen, there are so many flowers. When I try to think of it, I can't. I've got a list, and we've got quite an array in our suburban yard. I mean, off the top of my head, honestly, I don't even know, 30 to 50 varieties of native plants in our yard, and I'm probably being conservative. Maybe when I'm bored, I'll try to count it all up. But anyway, the point is, in the pristine early world, these butterflies flew around, and they had what they needed to eat, which is, in case you did not know this, is nectar, period. Some butterflies do suck on, what is it, like the fructose or whatever of rotting fruit. Okay, but besides that, in general, they're after nectar. So native plants provide a good nectar source. Not exclusively, but for the most part, that is what will give the butterflies what they need. I was talking about in the last episode that the roses, Asiatic lilies, hydrangeas, things like that, those provide nothing. That means they're sterile. And you are not stupid if you did not know that. I did not know this until a few years ago. You go to the store, and if it's Lowe's or Home Depot, you're just screwed in the first place. That you see all these different flowers, and you're like, oh my gosh, I love that color. I love that style. I just like whatever it is you like about it, and you buy it and you think, oh, I'll put this in my flower garden, and maybe you think a little bit more and you're like, oh, I bet the butterflies will go to this because it's so pretty. Pretty has nothing to do with it. I have a flower in our yard called a figwort. Figwort. And it is the teeniest, weeniest nothing. It actually, if you really look at it and you've got great eyes, it looks like a teeny, weeny orchid, kind of like in a cup fashion, if that makes any sense. You can barely see it. It is a pollinator rock star. I mean, that thing's covered in bees every single day. It's bizarre. But so just because something's pretty doesn't mean it does any good, okay? And so this is where native plants for your area really comes into play. Wherever it is you're listening to me from, one, I thank you, but two, Google native pollinator plants for the area that you live, and it will give you a list, okay? For sun, for shade, for partial sun, partial shade. So you'll have the whole thing covered. Easy breezy. That's why I love Google or whatever your search engine is, okay? So, I think I forgot the tangent I was on. Oh, yeah, nectar sources. My mind's going in a million directions right now, so I should not take these side trips. Anyway, so that is why we want to plant native plants. And then we have the native plant thing covered, or the nectar source covered. Now, monarch butterflies specifically, and that's what is going to lead into this next point. So we've got our nectar sources, and now any butterfly, any moth, any pollinator can come to our yard and get a little sip. And then maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, Cathy, I live in a condo or I live in an apartment, and that is okay. You can get a pot or two or three and plant nectar sources, okay? So get some zinnias, which are native to the Southwest United States, but they grow anywhere that there is a sunny location. They need full sun all day long, but that is a great source of nectar and pollen every day, okay? But again, look up the same list and put them in pots, okay? That'll be great. Asters are amazing for this time of year in case you're trying to get a last-minute thing for your front porch. But anyway, it doesn't matter where you live. You do not have to have a field full of flowers. You can have 1 pot, 2 pots, 3 pots, 12 square feet, 20 square feet, 50 square feet. You can make it any size you want and stick a few plants in for the size, a few native plants for the size that you are able to eke out or able to take care of, because that does matter. It doesn't matter if you have 100 acres if you do not have the time or the ability to take care of whatever you planted, okay? So whatever you can do will be more than good enough, because most people aren't doing a darn thing. So I am a person that thinks anything is better than nothing, all right? So we fed them. Now they've made their babies, and now they need to lay their eggs. Where do they do that? Perhaps you did not know that, and this is one of the biggest reasons why the monarch butterfly population is down the tubes. The monarch butterfly can only lay its eggs on one species of plant, and that is milkweed. Now, there are a variety of milkweed species, okay? So they've got a lot to choose from as far as the milkweed goes, but it's only milkweed, all right? And milkweed grows in fields. I mean, typically, it can grow anywhere. It can grow in a pot. It can grow anywhere. But in nature, it grows in fields. And what keeps happening to all the fields? Like I told you, strip malls, condos, data centers, all the things. And so they just keep getting wiped out and out and out. And listen, I'm not a crier. I rarely cry, and I am happy about that because it makes me sad to cry. But I was on the way to my mom's the other day, and I was driving down this stretch of road, and it was, one of those little towns. So it was kind of built up gas stations, Wendy's, Taco Bell, all that kind of stuff. And then there was some giant factory. I don't know what it was, water treatment plant, a factory. I don't know what it was, with, I'm not good at estimating acreage. Let's just say 100 acres in front of it of literal nothingness. Okay. And then there was some woods. Well, flowers that butterflies need don't typically grow under trees. They need full sun. Point, I'm trying to give you a picture. Okay. Road, Wendy's, 100 acres of dirt, and then this huge factory thing, which how many acres that takes up. Not one thing for the monarch butterfly that flew over my car to get. It had no food. It's kind of like I wondered how far that was for a monarch butterfly. You know what I mean? If it's a mile for a human to walk, how far is that for a monarch butterfly? 10 miles? I don't know. But it almost made me cry because I thought, little buddy, like, you aren't going to find anything to eat around here for quite a while. And here's the deal. So the eastern migratory monarch at this minute is on its way to, they're on their way to Mexico by the millions. And there are a good majority that will not make it. Let's take out of the equation all of the reasons I mentioned earlier of why they get wiped out, why they die. If you are a monarch butterfly and you are on your way to Mexico, I mean, seriously, I live in Ohio. From Ohio to Mexico, flapping my little butterfly wings, are you kidding me? I can't even imagine a monarch butterfly flying 10 miles away from here. I think that's crazy. And it's flying to Mexico. What is it, like 2,500 miles or something crazy? It needs copious amounts of nectar to make it. And if it just keeps hitting dirt field, warehouses, highway, apartment complexes, it's going to drop dead before it ever leaves the state. So you see how it matters that it can make a pit stop at your house, at your apartment, at your condo. And heck, if you own a business, I'd say, hey man, can you put out a couple of pots of zinnias in front of your business so they can stop by and get a little drink? That would make such a huge difference. And, maybe somebody listening's an entomologist and you think I'm full of crap, then okay, private message me and, set me straight. But this is what I'm thinking. I mean, it makes sense to me. Okay, so back to the babies. The monarch butterfly needs that milkweed. Well, I just said it grows in all these fields, so they've been wiped out. Any animal, but these butterflies and moths, they all have specific plants that they lay their eggs on. Some is just like the monarch. It's only milkweed. Zebra swallowtail butterfly only lays their eggs on pawpaw trees, which we have also, but I don't have anyone around me who has pawpaw trees, so I'm never going to see that butterfly because there's no reason to make a pit stop at my house. Anyway, they all have different plants that they lay their eggs on. And like I said, some of them are specific and some of them are broader. Like the black swallowtail butterfly has a family of plants, so it can lay its eggs on dill, parsley, common rue, Queen Anne's lace. It's members of the carrot family, okay? So a little bit more of a variety. But the point really is if you take, let's go back to the monarch, if you take milkweed away, like just say it completely disappeared off this earth, monarch butterfly, bam, extinct. It doesn't have a brain that can be like, oh, well, shoot, no more milkweed. I'll just lay my eggs on a blade of grass, or I'll lay it on that flower or that tree leaf or something like that. That is not how nature works. So it's hardwired in their DNA. It must be what they've been, I guess I'll say, born to do. Okay. So by providing, those are called host plants. Okay. And what the significance of that is, so the monarch butterfly lays its eggs on the milkweed leaf. When that egg hatches, that caterpillar needs the milkweed leaf to eat. Okay, so that's how all that works. It's not just the fact of laying the egg on there. All eggs hatch, and then those babies, those caterpillars, must have those plant families to eat. That is what its body requires to survive. So I hope I explained that in a good, coherent way. So that's where it's very important. So when we garden for wildlife, we're keeping those things in mind. And so maybe you're like, well, monarch butterflies are my favorite butterfly. Then I would say, hey, get some nectar sources and make sure you plant at least one species of milkweed and plant a few, because when monarch caterpillars start getting bigger and bigger, they are hungry caterpillars. I think there's a book called The Hungry Caterpillar, The Crunch Munching Caterpillar, or whatever. Anyway, they must have made it about a monarch caterpillar because those things chow down. So, and if you have, maybe you say, you know what, I'd like to start butterfly gardening. So again, Google's my best friend. Google butterfly host plants for whatever area that you live, and it will give you the whole list of what plant you need to attract that butterfly as its host plant, so it can lay its eggs on that. Like I said, there's a kabillion choices. They can eat from any nectar source, but they can only lay their eggs on specific plants. Okay, so anyway, you can Google what plants for whatever butterfly trips your trigger. But this is where we can make a difference for the monarch butterfly population. And so I do believe that individual homeowners, individual apartment dwellers, and condo livers, we can make a difference in raising the monarch butterfly population numbers. I do believe that. So I hope that in a world where you think you can't make a difference in much because it's all kind of crazy, you can make a difference in this. So, and that should give you hope, that should put a little smile on your face. Again, who doesn't want to save a butterfly? So anyway, thank you for listening. That's it. It's been 20 minutes, so I can't make that short. I love talking about butterflies. So anyway, have an amazing day. Please share this with your friends. Check out my socials. And I'm not typically on TikTok, but the usual, Facebook and Instagram. And I have a blog, backyardcolumbus.com. Thanks a lot. Have an awesome day.